initially when I put this together, I actually had the topic supplements, everybody's favorite topic, because everyone seems to love supplements, and everyone thinks they're the thing that's going to make them a superhero and obviously a world champion triathlete. But unfortunately, that's not really the case. However, what we will do is talk through what supplements we believe in at FuelIn and products that we recommend in terms of brands, and then we can talk through that. And obviously, I'm very keen for everyone to have their input into what products they like. I'm sure there's products I haven't mentioned or we haven't mentioned in this guide, and I'm always open to hearing about products, and so is Elizabeth and Jonathan, to try. Everyone's experience is different, so let's get into it. I broke it into part one and part two, actually, because again, when I was putting this together, I had them as performance and health, and ultimately I realized there's just too much content to get through. So rather than rushing it, we'll just try and get through as much as we can. So it'll probably be part one and part two. Okay, so in terms of supplements, do you need them? I guess the question is, yeah. The likelihood is, it's a very tricky one. Do you need them if you're an everyday person not competing in a sport like triathlon? The answer is probably no. For you guys who are pushing your bodies to the limits, they act as complements. And I often talk about supplements as complements rather than supplements, because they should be complementing your diet and assisting you with anything that is deficient in that diet. So yes, they can improve health and performance. They can help you improve body composition in addition to a very good diet. And as you will have seen from the post yesterday, if your goal is body composition, improving body composition, then it matters how much you eat, not necessarily what you eat. And if, through blood tests and things like that, it can address a deficiency. So, a couple of you on this call here, we know that you've had iron deficiencies. Iron's a really good example of a supplement that, if as an endurance athlete, your ferritin levels quite often will become depleted, especially if you're a female athlete. But often we see this in male athletes. An iron supplement, a ferrous iron supplement with vitamin C, can be very effective at improving those ferritin stores and improving energy levels. I think the biggest issue with supplements is that, and especially unfortunately in America, is that it's a bit of the Wild West. There's very few regulations on supplements in America. Even with an FDA approval, like, there's still a lot of, they'll often just put that stamp, this, what is it? This has not been approved by FDA, or whatever, that little statement that sort of gets them out of everything. So I think, and we talk about this in this, but look for what's called NSF Sport or Informed Sport or HASTA if you are concerned about a contaminated product. Look at where the product is coming from and where it's being made. And as it says at the bottom, the likelihood is majority of supplements don't actually do anything. And I think that's really important. It's probably the hard training and the stuff that goes in your mouth in the form of food and fluids that's going to make the biggest difference. So just remember that. Okay.
Was there anything else you wanted to add, Elizabeth?
No, really, I think just highlighting, Scott did a great job, the fact that supplements aren't, just because you can use them and they're there doesn't mean that you should, and it doesn't mean that it's going to change your life or your performance. Like Scott said, the stuff you do on a daily basis is what's most important. And if anything, I would say err on the side of caution, because they can contain dangerous unknown substances, because you have no idea on a lot of supplements if you're getting what they actually are telling you to get. If it has stuff in it that could be indicated for different medications that you're taking. In general, are you getting the return on investment is fairly low for most supplements, unless, like Scott said, it's specifically to address a deficiency or you're using them in the correct way as a complement to your diet.
Great.
Okay, so as I said, part one's about performance. And I actually flipped this on its head because usually I'd talk about health first, but I thought everyone's more interested in performance. And we've been getting a lot of questions about in-session fueling. So let's just go for that. So let's keep going. Okay, in-session fueling. So our view, as you will have heard me personally talk about this a lot, is that the type of carbohydrate or the type of fuel you'll take in should be specific to what you're trying to achieve. So you will have noticed that obviously with the way in which the program is set up is that, you know, Z2 or 1, you're going to be in a lower carbohydrate fuel source, or whether you need something or whether you don't, it's probably more likely to going to contain higher amounts of fats. So you will see for Z2, Z1, you're going to be more likely to be recommended something like a picky bar, which contains some carbohydrates, but also some fat and more about total calories than say in a Z3 plus sort of session. So when you're looking at those recommendations, we're going to recommend things like the bars, the almond butter pouches, so Artisana, Justin's. We're going to look at that. And we'll just go back one, Jay, before we get to that. So then you're thinking about, okay, so intensity, if intensity pushes up, you're probably going to be looking at more carbohydrate as a fuel source. Okay, so pushing into that Z3, 4, 5, we're looking at carbohydrates as a fuel source. Now, as you can see here, majority of these are in food form. And our belief, and this is based on, you know, practical experience and also what is found in the literature, is that if you consume a hypertonic solution, i.e. think Gatorade, which is a large bolus of sugar in a liquid form, that's going to reduce gastric emptying. And that means it's fine if you're sitting on a bike. If you're just doing a bike ride, it's probably going to be all right because you won't have that mechanical stress. When you go from being in that very stable, sort of nearly horizontal position with a gut full of liquid, carbohydrate liquid, transition into the run off the bike, that's when problems can exist. So our view is that you can mitigate that and reduce that. Certainly in a 70.3, our belief is you don't need to use carbohydrate liquids, okay? There are going to be special cases and there are going to be athletes that do choose to use that, and you can work around that. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying on the majority that in our experience, it's going to be better that you choose to use things like a gels or a blocks, if need be a bar. Again, for a 70.3, our view is that you could probably do the 70.3 distance purely on gels and blocks. Potential, and then for the longer distances, you're probably going to start to use something like a bar throughout it, mainly just to get total calories in, okay? Because your total caloric intake, no matter what you're doing, is always going to end up being in a slight deficit by the end. It's just the way it is because you just can't consume enough. So that's pretty much in a nutshell how I would do that. Obviously, Elizabeth, do you want to add anything to that before we just go into, obviously, we talked a little bit of intensity. We talked about fat versus carbs. We haven't talked about palatability or actually the duration at this point. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, not yet. I think we're good.
Okay. So you can see there, I've put up a few products that a lot of the time we'll be recommending. So I don't care, honestly. I don't care. And I think Elizabeth cares or Jonathan cares what product you use, as long as it actually serves the purpose. So on the top right, that's actually the new Endurance Tap packet, which has come out. So a lot of you have tried the Endurance Tap, and that's got the silver packet with the screw top. They're actually getting rid of that, which is really cool. And they're going to have an easy tear solution. And the package is going to be much smaller, which I'm very excited about. And we've actually got ETAP sending out some products to some athletes, and you know, we might be able to try and organize some more of that, depending on how much they've got to give away. Same with precision hydration. Who's had the ETAP, by the way? Does everyone know what the Endurance Tap is? Yeah. Okay, so it's maple syrup. It's so good in terms of just how liquid it is. It's also a natural form of glucose and a little bit of fructose because of the maple syrup. And so it's ideal as a multi-carbohydrate transporter or multi-transported carbohydrate. The Precision Hydration Gel, top middle. Has everyone tried that? Yeah, I think this is great. Personally, I love this product. It's very neutral flavored. For me, it tastes a little bit like banana, but then I told them that and they were like, that's the first time anyone's ever said that. So obviously my palate is a little bit different to most. Must be something. Yeah, so Tracy's saying she loves it. The packaging for that product has also recently changed because we gave a lot of feedback that the tearing mechanism of that was diabolical and you just couldn't rip it off. So they've changed that and it's really good. The advantage of that product is that it contains 30 grams of carbs. So for me, I only have to have one of those every 20 minutes and I'm getting 90 grams of carbs in per hour, which, you know, again, makes me feel fantastic. I don't get any GI distress from that personally. Again, I don't know if anyone else has had any issues with the pH gel. I haven't had any reported issues with it. So I think it's a really good option. It is a little bit bigger, although again, the new packaging has brought the size down. So I think that's a really big plus. Does anyone want to add anything about Precision apart from they love it? Okay. And then top left, Morton. I know everyone talks about Morton. Apparently it's some fantastic encapsulated carbohydrate. I don't think it is. I think the drink mix might have something to it, but I'm pretty sure the gel is just a glucose fructose gel. It contains, I think it's 30 grams of carbs in a gel as well. Maybe it's only 25. Neutral flavor. The reason I think that you should all try the Morton gel is because it's on the race course. I was talking to Michael Misner this morning, and he was pointing out again, oh, I haven't tried the Morton and it's on the course. I should be doing that. And absolutely. I think if something is on the course and you're likely going to use it, then you need to try it before you do it. So I would try the Morton. The thing about Morton that I don't like is it's very, very expensive. And I think that's a real downer for that. And as Michael's saying, it's sold out in New York. So, you know, you do what you can with it. I don't think it's like the panacea. I think it's just another carbohydrate that you can try. And if you like it, then go for it. Has everyone tried the Morton gel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
pretty neutral.
Special. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
definitely if others work for you, not worth the price. Like
Yeah.
it is significantly more than others. So
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't like the drink. The drink packet wasn't great, but
yeah, we'll get onto the drink. Actually, we'll talk about drink packet now because Morton does the drink. It's this encapsulated carbohydrate. Apparently, I haven't actually had it. It's very goopy, would be the best description of it. Apparently, it's very thick. In hot weather, it's not so good. The downside of carbohydrate liquids as well, which I think quite a few athletes have found over the last couple of races, as temperature drops, you're not going to drink as much because your sweat rate's not going to be up and you're not as thirsty. Now, if your carbohydrate source is in the form of liquids and you're relying on your bottle to get that, but you're not drinking, you can see the immediate issues. So that's where having bottles, yeah, so Ted's saying it doesn't mix well and clumps up. And that's what I've heard. It just gets a bit thick at the bottom. But you can imagine, so that's where our view is your bottles on your bike should be electrolytes and water. Carbohydrates, it's better to have them in either gel or block source. And it's just going to, especially for 70.3, I think you're going to be in a much better position if you run your fueling in that manner, as opposed to relying on carbohydrate in liquid form. Ironman, again, there is cases and have played around this with some of the one-to-one athletes where they are trialing the Morton at the front end of the bike, because just purely from a convenience standpoint, we can get in sort of 100 to 120 grams of carbs in liquid in a race where it's hot enough to actually warrant it. So they are drinking their carbs and eating a little bit as a top up in the first 2 hours of the bike, and then switching to electrolytes and carbohydrates in solid form for the rest. The other thing that you might want to do, which actually I just got off the phone with him, Scott Cato. He raced on the weekend and had his best race ever. What he did, Cervelo has a drink bottle that sits underneath the bar. He actually filled that with endurance tap. So he filled it with 10 endurance taps, and he drank the endurance taps straight out of that bottle, and he said it worked an absolute treat. And I might get him to share a little bit more information about that. But I think that's where I'm sort of like, I think all of you as athletes can be a little bit innovative and start to think about how you can get these products into you in the simplest manner, in the most practical manner. And I know, like Steve, you're doing an MTB race, or you just did one. So thinking about things like that is really important. Like, could you have a bottle full of endurance tap and actually get the gels into you in that easy manner, rather than sort of, thinking of having to handle them, because obviously, in an MTB situation, you want to have control of your bike. Same thing, Camelback with an electrolyte would make sense as well in that situation. The other products there, the EFS liquid shot, that used to come in 100 grams, and it used to be a bigger bottle, which was really cool. And I know one of the guys in Hawaii used to use this all the time, because effectively it was 4 shots in one. They've reduced it down to a single shot, probably just from commercialization standpoint. Everyone that I've spoken to who's used EFS really enjoys it and likes it. I think it's quite a neutral flavor as well, so it could be a product to think about. Cliff Blocks. I think Cliff Blocks are great. A lot of athletes love them. It's probably the only Cliff product I really recommend. I think the Cliff Bar can be used potentially in an Ironman if you cut it up into 3 parts, because they're so big. The advantage of a Cliff Bar is it's just got a huge amount of calories, because it's got 46 grams of carbs in it and about 15 grams of fat. So I think you're all up, you're looking at like 400 calories or something in a bar. Cliff Blocks, what I would advise is that you cut the packet in half. And with all these products, like, it's worth just snipping them, especially bars and blocks. Snip the packaging to make it practically very, very easy for you to get them out. 3 blocks is generally what we recommend that you consume in one hit. That's 24 grams of carbs in one go. And then it's just about pacing it out. Now, obviously, the amount of carbohydrate that you're consuming is going to be determined by a number of factors. So personally, it's going to be determined, male and female actually does have an impact. Women will tend to get more GI distress than men. Why this is, they don't really know. In terms of grams per kilo body weight, women will tend to consume less on a per kilo basis than men. Men tend to be able to consume more. As a minimum amount we want women aiming for, it's at least 0.8 grams per kilo body weight. For men, it's 1 gram per kilo body weight. Now, that's the sort of minimum we would like to see you getting to. Once you hit that minimum, then you can start talking about like threshold sort of stuff where, minimum amounts might be 60 grams an hour. And, for a 50 kilo woman, that's a lot. That might seem like a lot, 60 grams an hour. For an 80 kilo man, 60 grams an hour is nothing. And that's where you want to be starting to hit 80 grams an hour, and then sort of pushing into the 90 grams, the 120 grams, which we're seeing now with a lot of the athletes are easily achieving 120 grams on the bike, and then setting themselves up really, really well for the run, where they can probably drop it back down to like 60 grams an hour, and absolutely crush the run, which is what we saw on the weekend with one of the athletes, where he actually consumed just under 140 grams on the bike per hour, and then actually only consumed just around 50 grams an hour on the run, and had a 9-minute PR. And so he was stoked with that. And I believe it's because he set himself up on the bike to allow himself to run at full pace.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, like, when you're eating this carbohydrate, especially in the bar, you got to take water to get it through or digest it or something. So there's a balance, at least. And that's when I was in the woods for 8 hours, right? Like, I had to make sure that I had water to take with the food, or else I'd have another problem. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean your situation's fairly unique because you've got to carry enough water on you, Steve. And this is where I think on your bike setup, I would have a Camelback, definitely for your fluids, and then you're probably looking at carrying at least another 2 bottles as well, 2 to 3, and you've just got to manage that fluid appropriately. This is why I don't like bars so much as well for shorter duration, because they get very clumpy in your mouth. You certainly don't want to be trying to eat a bar running in a 70.3. I mean, I tried it the other day running a half marathon, and it was disaster. I just couldn't breathe. And I think that's the feedback you get. Obviously, in your situation, Steve, where it's going to be a lot about calories, there is obviously a lot of downhill for you, but it's managing that energy intake on the way up and doing it in a way that is easy. So I would say to you, like, you're probably going to be focusing on gels and blocks and things that are easy to get in and swallow, minimal amounts of water to flush it down, manage your electrolytes as you're going, and then probably when you get to the top and you're on the way downhill, stuff a bar in your mouth and just chew it slowly on the way down. That's probably how I'd be doing it. I'm not a mountain biking expert by any means. And if anyone's got any ideas on that, but from a practical standpoint, that's what I would imagine you'd be doing. And same with, like, if you take some sandwiches with you, Steve, like, I'm all for, in situations like your races, I think you can take real food with you. So I would pack like an almond butter jelly sandwich, wrap it in foil. You get to the top, white bread on that, stuff it in your mouth and eat it on the way down. You can afford to do that. In a triathlon race, it's just not going to happen. Like, any of you want to try and eat sandwiches on it, go for it. I'm more like, I hear people talking about all the time, I ate real food. Wow. Couldn't care, honestly. Like, you're there to win, or at least post the best time you are. Like, if you want to do it, like, having not, eaten, and you did it with minimal fuel, or you do it without carbohydrates, great. Our view is you're trying to perform at your utmost best. And I think that's the point of this. And that's what we're trying to get through. Carbohydrates are going to be king if you want to go fast. How you deliver those to yourself, that's a little bit of give and take. That's the point of the carbohydrate testing. And, like, I could pick out Jason, like, his improvement in carbohydrate intake has been, fantastic to watch. And I just, it was such a shame he didn't get to race the other weekend, because it would have been so great to see him put that into practice. And Steve, like, to you, like, it's that repetitive practice that you need to get in. And when we're recommending to all of you, do your carbohydrate fueling and practice it and record it, it's so important to see how you progress in terms of carbohydrate consumption, and also like your sweat tests and things like that.
Hey, Scott, really quick question. So one of the things I tested out in training prior to California, which didn't happen, so I didn't get to use it in practical, is from a previous nutritional consult that I had, it was to use dextrose mixed with your hydration, your electrolytes. So I use Precision Hydration in one of my bottles, and then I just mix up to, like, I think it's like 18 grams of just dextrose with it, and so I get straight dextrose with the hydration. What's your take on that?
I'd say that's a really bad idea.
It worked in training, but I don't know, but I didn't, it was for just a long ride, and it was.
That's my point. It's a long ride. So for a long ride, absolutely. I mean, you could take in dextrose. I mean, dextrose as well. Yeah, I mean, you're just going to set yourself up for a hypertonic solution. You might as well. I mean, 16 grams of carbs isn't going to do really much for you in terms of performance. I mean, if you're looking at total, you probably drank that in a liter because it probably didn't taste that nice per hour. So what it did was limit your total amount of carbohydrate consumption over the hour to just 16 grams. And it's like, why? If you're trying to fuel that session, it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. You would have been better off having 80 grams in that bottle and just tolerating it and working towards improving your gut tolerance and potentially seeing if you can improve that through taking in that amount of carbs over that period of time. But if you did a run off the bike with that solution, I dare say you probably would have required the toilet.
Okay. Fair enough.
So yeah, we're going to I think, what's the next bit, Jay? Oh, let's go to the next slide, Elizabeth, unless you had something to say. I'm just conscious of time. It's already 9:30. I knew this would happen because, I mean, it's fine. Look, there's no rush on these. We can go through these as single, Q&As and things like that. So I think this is a really important slide to understand why we recommend what we recommend and how it relates to you guys. So, because the zone of the session, and we know we get you guys to write it in the title, or the coach will write it in, it will dictate effectively what fueling you are being recommended and when you're being recommended to take it in. So, depending if you can do fasted training or not, that can have an impact on what we provide you with. If the session goes over, if it goes over 60 minutes, it's likely that I'm not going to recommend a fasted training. And I know a lot of you have said, oh, I always do my fasted training. You don't have to do fasted training in order to still burn fat and to reduce your total body composition. Again, the total caloric intake over the 24 hours and over the week is going to have a much bigger impact than you starving yourself before a really hard session that you actually want to get something out of, and actually then feel terrible in the session, feel really hungry afterwards, overeat afterwards, and then undo the whole session. So that it's like putting everything in context. If you're very, very disciplined, yes, fasting from a performance standpoint could have a positive impact on body composition, but for the majority of people, I find it's just too hard. And you end up just getting really, really hungry and having a terrible session and then overeating afterwards. It is important to remember that we will recommend, like before a swimming session, I will just say to you, we will recommend to you that you should eat something. And if it's early in the morning at like 5:30 in the morning, have a piece of toast. It doesn't have to be fancy. Piece of toast, whilst you get up, whilst you're waking up, putting some water on your face, you put it on, have a whole wheat piece of toast. If it's a really hard session, short, sharp, maybe you go a piece of white toast, but put some jam on it, put some almond butter on it, put some peanut butter on it. Just eat something. If it's an orange snack, have 2 pieces. It can be that simple. Like, it's just volume then, because red is less than 30 grams of carbs. Amber or orange is going to be, 50 grams of carbs. 1 piece of toast, 2 bits of toast. It literally can be that simple if you want to make it that simple. And then, as we said, as you can see there, if it is zone 3 to 5, we're recommending carbohydrates be consumed on a regular basis. Again, depending if you're a male or a female, the frequency of those feeds is going to be between 15 and 30 minutes. For men, as a general recommendation, I'm going to be saying 15 to 20 minutes. For women, probably somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes is what we're going to be recommending. Everyone is different. Some women will cope very, very well and be able to eat more frequently. That may be related to their body size being either a bit bigger, or sometimes, I can think of Sarah P. She was 118 pounds and consuming 120 grams of carbs. So you do the math on that and you can figure out that she was consuming a huge amount of carbs, and she's a very small person, but she worked up to that. And then, if it's zone 1, zone 2, you're not going to bonk. Okay. Please don't think you're going to bonk if you're doing a zone 1, zone 2. And, your body has fat on it. I don't think any of you are 0% body fat. So you're going to have some fuel there. And if you are working in zone 1, zone 2, you're going to be utilizing fat as a predominant fuel source. So you're going to be all right. The recommendation there from us is every 40 to 60 minutes. If you're really struggling, go 40. If you're feeling great, go 60. It's pretty simple. Now, again, these are guidelines. And I'm always surprised when someone says, but you told me not to eat until 60 minutes. And it's like, you can eat a little bit earlier if you really need to. We don't want you falling off your bike. We don't want you like passing out. Okay. So just remember, these are recommendations. If you've got burning questions, you can always, arrange a consultation with Elizabeth or myself and chat through your specific needs, especially if you are on the autopilot plan. We're doing our best to fit, across a large population of people. There's always going to be those individual nuances where, you need a little bit more understanding or a little bit more education to help you. Elizabeth, do you have anything you want to add to that? Sorry, I was rambling.
Nope, you're doing great.
Okay. Let's go to the next one. So electrolytes, again, look, there's so many electrolytes out there now. It just blows my mind what's there. I think one of the key things we'll say to you, okay, is the top two up there of sodium content and sugar content are probably going to be two of the most important things in your electrolyte. Sodium content. Sodium is the driver for hydration. It is what allows the fluid to pass across the cellular membrane between the gut membrane. Sugar is required. Okay. So if you have a 0 sugar electrolyte, chances are it's not going to work, because that sodium is going to be searching for a bit of sugar to find and transport it across. Now, you could argue, well, I'm having gels, I'm doing this. Yes, you could argue that. All I'm saying is if you're having electrolyte on its own, then you want to make sure that it's got a little bit of sugar with it. Okay, so those products I've got there. Has everyone tried most of those? So the caveat to this, so I will say this, the precision hydration doesn't have any sugar in it. So if you are taking those on, you probably want to be consuming a type of carbohydrate with them. And that's the tricky one, because I think they're really good to use in, say, a race situation. But if you are going to use them just in a Z1, Z2, you want to be thinking about, have you consumed some carbohydrates with them in order to get that transport. So you've got things what are called sodium glucose-like transporters, SGLTs, and that's what allows the sodium to cross the cellular membrane. Same with the salt pills. So the timing, if you are using these products, you want to think about the timing. So what I would recommend, or what we would recommend, is that you consume your gels or your blocks and then consume the electrolyte afterwards, especially if it is something like Precision or the salt tabs or the Heat Guard. You may want to consider doing that afterwards. And I know, look, for a lot of you, you're doing the sweat testing, which is going to give you the rate at which you're losing fluids. And that's really important. And again, it's repetition of that. If you're doing sessions, record your weight before you go and do the session, record your weight after the session, record what you drank. It helps, okay? A lot of you don't have a clue about how much fluid you lose during sessions from Z1, Z2 to Z3 and above in different temperatures, i.e. mild, moderate, or really hot temperatures. And the sooner you can get an understanding of that, the better your race is going to be. So like I know Mike said the pH was a game changer. It can be a game changer, because when you start to understand your sweat rate and you start replenishing that, and then you couple that with, say, the sodium concentration sweat test, then you can put together the puzzle. Okay, the pieces of the puzzle start fitting together better. If you're caked in, like, who of you has salt marks all over you when you finish? Okay, so Elizabeth gets that. Alejandro, I know, is like off the charts. Like, the only guy who sweats more and has a higher sodium concentration is the goalkeeper from the Maple Leafs, where he used to take in 2,000 milligrams of sodium per hour when we were playing games. It was crazy. But I think Alejandro sort of rivals him with that. But he did the sweat testing. He did heaps of sweat rate testing, and we got him tested for his sodium concentration. And it was a game changer. His first race after being on the program, he smashed it, and he's continued to smash it. And it's great to see when an athlete finishes with a smile on their face, as opposed to the emergency tent. So all these products here, I haven't tried the base salts, the base electrolyte salts. Does anyone use those? That's the one where it's like the tube and you flick it onto your thumb and you can lick it. People say it's good. I'm not quite sure. I think they talk about something like the mucosal membrane in your jaw, in your mouth, helps with absorption. I don't know where the science for that comes from, but it looks interesting and people seem to like it. I think the really cool thing about that is that if you're sucking back on endurance tap and precision gels, and they're pretty sweet all the time. Having a salt lick, it's a bit like being a horse, really, isn't it? You have a salt lick, and it just breaks it up. SOS is one of my favorite products. I think it's a great product. Some people find it too sweet in the race. True, I actually created that True electrolyte. I'll be honest, it's very similar to SOS. I probably modeled it on SOS. So, hand on heart, I think I said that to James Mayer, who's the owner of SOS. But, a bit of competition is always good. Some people find the True a little bit too sweet as well. It's really up to you. I think the advantage of the Precision is that it is very low on flavoring, and I think that's really good. I have 2 salt tablets there that you could consider using, the Precision Hydration and the Heat Guard. The advantage of the Precision one is it's a single pill for 250 milligrams. The Heat Guard is 2 tablets, I think, for 320 milligrams. So it's really up to you what you want to choose, and depending on your sodium concentration will probably have an impact on that. The things you want to look for in electrolytes is things like, I describe them as shitty fillers because it will result in you having a shitty time, is things like xylitol. That's a known laxative. So have a look at what xylitol, and what's the other one, Elizabeth? What's the other commonly used ingredient that's a known laxative?
Sorbitol, diabetes.
Yeah, sorbitol as well. So look for those ingredients in products, especially if you're consuming them in large amounts. Xylitol and sorbitol, often found in chewing gum, but it will act as a laxative if you're taking on a lot of them. So, and the other thing is like, honestly, like I was talking to Alan McCubbin, who's from Monash Uni, and he's like the electrolyte guru who actually helped me formulate the True electrolyte. We were talking about like other minerals. So everyone bangs on about magnesium and potassium and all that in electrolyte. He's like, absolute rubbish. You don't actually need any of that in there. He was like, magnesium makes no difference, which I thought was fascinating. And to be honest, it's just in there from a commercial standpoint. It makes it look better and more appealing. And a lot of people just think, oh, well, if it doesn't have magnesium and potassium, it's not as good. But actually, the reality is you probably don't need it in there at all. So just things to note, like, they're always going to be putting in crazy ingredients into electrolytes and other products that ultimately aren't really going to be required. So sodium and a little bit of sugar is probably your key driver. That's what you're looking for. We got time for one more.
I was just going to say on the sweat testing, remind everyone that bike sweat testing and run sweat testing, you can have different sweat rate. So important to do both. And different times of the year, obviously different temperatures, but if you haven't done a sweat, like it can change yearly depending on your fitness, depending on what other stuff you might have going on. So it's like, just because last year, the year before, you did some expensive sweat testing and you know what it's like, if you're a better trained athlete now, your age can be a factor in that. So it's something that you always want to be addressing, like not, weekly, but like once you get an established sweat rate for bike and run, then make sure you touch back on that, yearly or so.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And, in the app, you'll see it is set up for bike and run, and your run sweat rate will definitely, I'd say in 99% of athletes, your run sweat rate will be higher than your bike sweat rate. It's just because full body movement, you're using more muscle mass. Secondly, the temperature, as Elizabeth said, is going to be a driving factor. And again, you can log that in there. Is right. Yeah. And so I was just going to get to that. You want to definitely log in different temperatures. Really important point is that your sodium concentration shouldn't really change. Okay. So whilst the sodium concentration that you get tested is a marker, it's not an absolute. It's not like you lose 1,500 milligrams every single time. It just indicates that you're a higher sodium concentration sweater. But that number really shouldn't change over your lifetime. And that's really important. You can get it. I'm always interested for people to get it maybe tested like a year apart and just get it, and then just look and go, actually, it is very similar. And if it is very similar, great. If it's way off, it's just make sure you get tested by the same people as well with the same device. You know, if you go and do levels, I think it is leveling testing, and then you go and do precision hydration testing, I think it's just different units and it's going to give you a different value. So no different from going to a DEXA scan. Go to the same DEXA scan, go to the same, you know, whatever you're getting tested, just use the same device. Okay. Okay. I know we've got a lot to get through. Protein, everyone's favorite topic at the moment. Top 3 pitchers: Informed, Hasta, and NSF. If you want to avoid having a banned substance in your protein powder, I would advise you to use a product that has that stamp on it. Keep in mind that even with those stamps on it, it does not guarantee you that you will not get a banned substance in your product. And that's very important to know. Any supplement you put in your body is your responsibility. And if it has a banned product in it, no matter what happens, you will still be responsible. And so whatever we're recommending to you, ultimately, it's still your decision to take it. You can mitigate the risk by using products that come from, you know, really reputable companies. So I've put up some examples here. Obviously, I'm a true fan. You know, as I've talked about previously, we were at Oracle Team USA. We were their first professional sports team that they trusted, and we worked with them to build out better products. They make all their products in-house in a factory just down the road from me, actually in Sydney. It's a family-run business. They get their whey protein from New Zealand, from Fonterra, which it's all grass-fed whey. All the products are natural. They make it in-house. It's a great small business, and I don't know, anyone who's had it always says to me the flavor is the best they've ever had. So that's my hard sell or soft sell on True. I think they're great. In Canada, we use that Garden of Life product. Pretty good. Tastes pretty good. The pea protein is pretty chalky. Pea proteins, any plant protein generally is pretty chalky. If it's 100% pea protein, it's going to taste really bad in my experience. The advantage of the vegan 85 is it's pumpkin, pea, and brown rice protein. So it's like a tri-blend. Does Momentous do a plant protein, Elizabeth?
Yep, they do. And it's a blend also.
It's a blend. I haven't tried Momentous. I've been told by a lot of people. I know Elizabeth uses it a lot and she loves it. So I'll trust her with that recommendation. Yeah, I think there's 3 really great products there that you could try. Does anyone try any other protein powders? Yeah, look, taste, honestly, what's that?
I said none that stand out. I mean, I've probably tried them all, but none that I like. Ascent is one that's kind of popular here that I think it tastes really fake.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find a way to like. Momentous was the first one that didn't upset my stomach at all and set well. So I mean, you kind of have to try to know, but these are definitely the top that I would.
Yeah. So with things to think about as well, like a WPI 90, it stands for whey protein isolate. So there's a whey protein isolate and there's a whey protein concentrate. Now, what that refers to is you will get 90 grams per 100 of protein. So 90 grams of protein per 100 grams scoop or 100 grams weight. With a whey protein concentrate, you're going to get somewhere between 80 and 85% protein. The really interesting thing about whey protein isolate is whilst it has a higher protein content, a whey protein concentrate actually has a better amino acid profile, and the bioavailability in the body is actually improved. So the really weird thing is that despite having less protein, actually the body may actually utilize it better. So you just need a little bit more. And the cool thing about whey protein concentrate, so they call it a WPC 80 at True. It's cheaper, but you have to use a little bit more. So the actual net, you're probably paying exactly the same amount, and that's fine. One thing to keep in mind, whey protein isolate has less lactose than whey protein concentrate. So if you do get issues with lactose, whey protein isolate would probably be a better choice for you rather than whey protein concentrate. If you don't get any lactose issues, whey protein concentrate tastes amazing because it's a little bit milkier. So it tastes literally like the WPC 80 from True, literally like the vanilla and chocolate tastes like a milkshake. So it's, whatever really obviously the source and the quality of the product, and then it comes down, like carbohydrates, it comes down to palatability. If you enjoy taking a supplement, you'll probably take it more regularly, and I think that's really important as well. One thing that True does do, which I think is a really good option, is they do what's called sample boxes. So you can get individual serves of each of the flavors, and they're also very good for traveling. So you can literally take the little packets with you in your bags if you're traveling away. And that's a really good option. It also just allows you to try all the flavors and go, oh yeah, I really like that one before committing. Not that I'm not doing a hard sell on True. I just really love the product. They've just released 360 gram bags, which I think is really cool as well, because a lot of people just don't like having, a kilo of chopped peanut butter or a kilo of coconut. Having smaller bags actually is just a little bit better because it allows you to try more flavors and not necessarily get sick of them. So that's pretty much where I sit with proteins. I think, look, if you've got different proteins, I saw Vega came out. I tried Vega. I just thought it was super chalky. The other thing is, in America, they tend to add a lot of like vegetable oils and fillers and things like that to the protein powders. So just be aware, just look on the back, look in the ingredients list. They're really, in a protein powder, there should only be like, 4 or 5 ingredients in there.
What do you think about Thorn?
Yeah, Thorn's good. It's just super expensive. I think Thorn can be good. I don't know. I think we had Thorn at the Maple Leafs for a bit with their protein, but it actually, the flavor of it wasn't that good, and the guys weren't eating it. So I got rid of it, and Clean is another product, KLEAN. It's a product that's NSF Sport. It's good. It's expensive. And again, I didn't think the flavor profile was so good. So I think that's the biggest thing with protein powders. Like, I think once you find a protein you like, if it's of good quality and you like the flavor, do not deviate. It's not even worth deviating. Like, I can tell you now, I will never try another protein product because I just love True. And it tastes great. That's my personal preference. Go with what you find is best for you. Just make sure it's from a good source, it's good quality protein, and it's actually giving you what you need. Okay. Is there any more on this, Jay? Is there one more slide? I'm conscious of time. Okay. God, you could talk for an hour on this slide alone. These are just other supplements I thought I'd put in there. We talked about iron. So the product middle row, second right. That's a product called Ferrograde C. It's a product in Australia that we have. It's 135 milligrams of elemental iron with 500 milligrams of vitamin C. It's such a great product for athletes. Unfortunately, I don't think you can buy it in America. I think you guys need to have actually a GP or an MD recommend you a product to purchase. Just make sure if you are iron deficient or ferritin deficient, speak to your GP, work out, is there an underlying cause that's causing it other than training really hard and under consuming? If you're over 45 and never had a colonoscopy and you're iron deficient or ferritin levels are really low, maybe consider getting a colonoscopy and endoscopy. You want to make sure that there's no actual underlying causes for that deficiency. We talked about Momentous and True then in terms of creatine monohydrate. They're 2 products that I would recommend. Creatine mono should just be in powder form. Do not worry about ethyls or esters or any of that other crap. Just take it as the brand should be Crea Pure. Okay, Crea Pure is from Germany. It is, just a very high standard of creatine. Both True and Momentous use Crea Pure. Look, ultimately, creatine is very cheap. I think per you get like 50 or 100 serves in each of those. That will last you for, months and months and months. 5 grams a day. You don't have to load. We were chatting about this, Elizabeth, myself, and Jonathan, and it's like, take creatine. It's like, it's not going to make you a bodybuilder. It's just going to improve power output. It will improve body composition. It will help with, strength. It improves muscular contractions. It's just a no-brainer to take. If you do get a GI distress with it, I'd question the type of creatine you're taking, also the timing of it. Ideally, take creatine after a strength training session or a training session. If you want to take it before, go for it. It's probably, you're not going to make that much difference. Other products to consider there is beta-alanine. I've talked a little bit about this in the past. I've had a couple of athletes use it for shorter events. I think where beta-alanine can be very good for endurance athletes is maybe in training to improve repeated sprint efforts. Beta-alanine will, however, give you the tingles over your face, so that transient sort of paresthesia. If you're not getting that, you're probably not taking high enough dose. With beta-alanine, you need to be taking it probably split dose 3 or 4 times a day, which becomes a problem, becomes a little bit of a pain in the backside. So for the effort and the expense of beta-alanine, is it a product you need and is a necessity? Absolutely not. Compared to creatine, I'd say don't worry about it. Collagen was really in vogue probably a year ago. Is it in vogue as much now? I don't know. You tell me. I think collagen can be fantastic if you've got tendon issues. If perhaps you're an older athlete, I would be recommending taking at least 15 grams of collagen with some vitamin C, either in a tablet form or in the form of orange juice or some sort of like Ribena. It's a cordial, a blackcurrant cordial. Take that as long as you've got 50 milligrams of vitamin C with the collagen. That should help in terms of the bioavailability and the collagen synthesis with the tendons. And if you're injured, I'd certainly recommend it. Beet It is a beet extract. That one in particular, Beet It Sport, contains 400 milligrams of dietary nitrates. Dietary nitrates have been shown to improve time to exhaustion and improvements in time trial time. Generally for shorter periods of time and repeated sprint efforts as well. So again, you might ask why you would use it as an endurance athlete. Again, I think you could use it for shorter events leading up to it, 5 to 7 days leading into an event. Take something like that. Again, you don't want to do it for the first time before a big race. You obviously want to practice it, make sure that you're comfortable with it. That product in particular is very divisive in terms of flavor profile and palatability. So you might want to just try it before you go and spend a lot of money on that product. Again, is it a necessity? No. Cool thing about dietary nitrates is that it can improve blood pressure significantly, can drop blood pressure in terms of systolic blood pressure by 11 to 15 milligrams. So if you do have high blood pressure, which I'm hoping most of you athletes don't, it could be advantageous. It also has been shown to help with LDL lipid profile, which is kind of cool. And then the last thing in the top middle row on the right-hand side is bicarb soda. Bicarb soda will probably be the cheapest supplement you ever purchase in your life. That packet there is about $1 Australian, which is about 60 cents American. Bicarb soda is pretty cool. It can assist in terms of if you talk about alkalinity and acidity in the blood, this thing actually does make a difference as opposed to eating some random diet that apparently improves your blood alkalinity and acidity, which just so FYI, that diet doesn't work. Bicarb soda has been shown, and we might do a talk about bicarb soda because I think it is very interesting. There are a lot of drawbacks with bicarb soda, including gastrointestinal explosiveness. I won't even say distress. I'll say explosiveness because I've seen it happen with athletes. It ain't pretty. So yeah, you just want to keep that in mind before you go and put a teaspoon of bicarb soda in your drink bottle. But it can work and it's pretty cool. They use it a lot in the Tour de France. They use bicarb before they hit the big mountain bits. But the advantage there, they've got cars driving up to them and giving them special bottles and God knows what else they're taking. But bicarb soda is something that they do take as well. So Look, these products, apart from creatine, I think, and the iron, if you needed it, these are probably wish list type products or special needs products, and then definitely not necessities. What about something like Ampumin? I don't even know what Ampumin is. What is Ampumin?
There's a lotion, like a performance lotion, and then there's like a performance powder that has actually some of those ingredients in there. So there's the nitrates and the what's the one that's always in pre-workout?
Beta alanine
Yeah.
is usually in there.
Yeah.
So
with that in it, it's a fancier.
Yeah, usually with those, like, so I mean, I have seen Ampumin, actually, the bicarb on the muscles. I have no idea how bicarb would be absorbed through the skin and get into like your muscles and actually make a difference to your blood. I just, the lotion, I'm yet to see how it works. So until I can understand the mechanisms of it, I'm going to leave that one out. I'll stick to just normal moisturizing cream because it's probably just expensive moisturizer. What else? In terms of like other products that contain everything, so the problem with a lot of these pre-mix sort of products is that they contain a lot of really great products. Like they might contain creatine, beta-alanine, and dietary nitrates, but the dosage of them is just not right. Like you need 400 milligrams of dietary nitrates to make a difference. You need, what is it? I can't remember the exact dosage, 3.6 grams or something like that, which is a lot of beta-alanine. Hence why you need to split it over doses of like 1.5 grams per dose. Otherwise, your face feels like it's about to fall off. And what else was it? Creatine, you need 5 grams. So you get these products which have like, 100 milligrams of dietary nitrates, 2 milligrams of creatine, and then, 500 milligrams of beta-alanine. And it's like, cool. In theory, it would be great, but just doesn't actually have the necessary amounts. So that's where I sit on those. You're better off taking them individually. Gets a little bit more expensive, but in the end, it's better for you. Sorry, guys. I know that went a little bit over time and probably a little bit rushed at the end. I apologize. But what we'll do, we can recap on some of the stuff. If you've got questions relating to this, we can always recap on it and go over them again. I think it'd be really cool just to do one about bicarb. Maybe we do one about bicarb nitrates and beta-alanine, just so you can understand how possibly they could be used in training in particular, and could be really something fun to do in the off season. You try. I mean, it's better to explode in off season than it is in a race. So, and you can all blame me for it, but it's I think things like bicarb, beta-alanine, and the nitrates could be really cool for off season, just to practice and play around with and see what you think. Go from there. And then the next talk we have planned, which I'm going to let Elizabeth run, is the one on health, and we'll talk about things like fish oils and maybe some brain supplements like ashwagandha and bacopa maniri. We'll talk about things like vitamin D. What else was in that? Some other sleep products, maybe melatonin, gut health. Turmeric. We'll talk about gut health products, FOS and GOS, and maybe things like that, and discuss those sort of things. And obviously, if you've got any supplements, CBD, absolutely not. Am I going to discuss that? Because I have no idea about it. I know it's in marijuana, but it's the good stuff for you, not the bad stuff. So, well, depending on which way you view it.
That'd be a all on its own.
I think I tell you what, if you want to know some information about CBD, Google Graham Close. Graham Close on PubMed. He did a recent review about athletes and CBD. He's a professor over in the UK. He's a great guy. I'd love to get him at some point on a Q&A with us and do a talk, and maybe we look to that. But have a read of his stuff. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to that. He's also very knowledgeable when it comes to vitamin D. He's written a number of papers about athletes and vitamin D. So he's very much a reference point for me when it comes to any of that scientific literature. Cool. There you go.
Let's go ahead and wrap it up, Scott. I mean, we're over. So
Yeah, we're over again. Always over. Anyway, look, thank you all for joining. Really good. I know you probably only caught every third word that I was saying because of my accent, but hopefully you understood most of it. And if you got questions, probably direct them towards Elizabeth, and she'll be able to answer them. So
We'll send out the replay so you can replay
Yeah,
it in slow motion if Scott was talking too fast.
yeah.
Thanks,
So,
Scott. Well done.
yeah.
Thank you.
Cool, Steve.
Thanks,
Thanks
everyone.
man.
Thank
Good
you.
luck,
Great
everyone.
talk.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
See you guys. Bye.